The alarm bells rang through the massive space station like thunder. Admiral Zexathara's crystal body flashed bright red as she rushed through the metal corridors. Her 6 legs clicked rapidly on the floor. Behind her, other alien beings hurried to keep up. Some floated, some crawled, some moved in ways that hurt to look at. The Galactic Council had not called an emergency meeting in over 200 years. The last time was when the Void Plague almost destroyed 3 entire star systems. Now, something had happened that scared every advanced race in the galaxy. Zexathara entered the Great Hall where representatives from 12 different worlds waited. The room was huge, with a domed ceiling that showed the stars outside. In the center, a large blue light projected images into the air. The smell of fear filled the room, even though each species had a different way of showing it. "Begin the briefing," Zexathara commanded. Her voice came out as musical notes that the translation devices changed into words. Dr. Kethamol moved forward. He looked like a giant jellyfish with too many tentacles. His skin was clear, and strange lights moved inside his body. He was the best scientist the Council had. If something puzzled him, it should worry everyone. 3 weeks ago, our deep space sensors detected something impossible. Kethamol began. The blue light above them changed to show a yellow star system. Earth-Sun. The human homeworld of Sol. A few council members made sounds of confusion. Humans were barely worth watching. They had only learned to travel between stars 50 years ago. Their ships were slow and ugly. Their weapons were simple. They fought each other more than they explored space. "Show them," Zexathara ordered. The image changed. Now it showed the outer edge of the Sol system, where empty space should have been. Thousands of ships hung in perfect formation. These were not the crude human vessels everyone knew about. These ships were beautiful and terrible. They were longer than cities and smoother than water. Light seemed to bend around them in impossible ways. Counselor Vorthak, who looked like a walking tree made of metal, spoke up. His voice sounded like grinding gears. "How many ships?" "Over 10,000, Kethamol replied. "Each one bigger than our largest battlecruisers." The room fell silent. The entire Galactic Council fleet had maybe 3,000 ships total. And these were the most advanced civilizations in the galaxy. "What are they made of?" asked Princess Yelana. She was from the energy beings who lived in stars. Her form looked like a woman made of fire. "We don't know," Kethamol admitted. "The materials don't match anything in our databases. The energy signatures make no sense. They seem to move without any engine we can detect." Ambassador Thren spoke next. He represented the machine people who had replaced their bodies with metal and circuits long ago. "What do the humans say about this fleet?" "That's the strangest part," Kethamol said. The image changed to show Earth itself. Cities sparkled on the surface. Space stations orbited the planet. Everything looked normal. "We contacted Earth's government. They claim they have no knowledge of any such fleet." "They're lying," growled General Korax. He was a warrior from a planet where the gravity was 10 times stronger than Earth's. His people were built like living tanks. "Humans are sneaky, always making plans." "We don't think so," Kethamol continued. "We scanned their entire system. They have maybe 200 ships total. All old designs we've seen before. Nothing that could build or support a fleet like this." The jellyfish scientist waved a tentacle, and the image changed again. Now it showed the mystery fleet in motion. The ships moved like dancers, turning and flowing in patterns that seemed almost alive. 3 days ago, the fleet began to move. They traveled toward the galactic core at speeds we cannot measure. Our best sensors couldn't track them properly. "Where are they now?" Zexathara demanded. Kethamol's lights dimmed. In any species, this meant bad news. "Gone." "What do you mean, gone?" "Vanished. Disappeared. One moment our sensors showed 10,000 ships. The next moment, nothing. No explosion, no debris, no energy trail. They simply stopped existing." The council chamber erupted in noise. Different species all talked at once in their own languages. The translation devices couldn't keep up. It sounded like chaos. Zexathara flashed bright white, which was how her people demanded silence. The noise stopped. "Show us the last known position," she ordered. The image above them zoomed out to show a huge section of space near the galaxy's center. A red marker showed where the human fleet had been last seen. The area looked empty now, just stars and cosmic dust. "We sent probe ships to investigate," Kethamol explained. "They found nothing unusual. Space itself shows no signs that anything was ever there." Counselor Mishara spoke up. She was from the telepathic species that could read minds across star systems. "Could this be some kind of trick, a false image meant to scare us?" "We considered that," Kethamol replied. "But 17 different sensor networks detected the fleet. 3 separate civilizations got the same readings. The quantum resonance signatures were real." "What does this mean?" asked the representative from the hive mind species. When he spoke, it was actually millions of beings thinking together. Zexathara moved to the center of the room. Her crystal body caught the light and threw rainbows on the walls. "It means humanity is not what we thought. Somehow in secret they built the largest space fleet in galactic history. Then they made it disappear." "But why?" Princess Yelana asked. "What do they want?" "Unknown," Zexthara admitted. "But consider this. We have been watching humans for decades. They seemed primitive, aggressive, barely able to work together. Now we discover they can build impossible ships and make them vanish at will." General Korak stood up, his heavy body making the floor shake. "This changes everything. Humans could be anywhere now, watching us, planning something, or protecting something," added Dr. Kethmol quietly. Everyone looked at him. The scientists' tentacles moved nervously. There were patterns in how the ships moved, not like an attack formation, more like guards, as if they were defending against something. "Defending against what?" Zexathara asked. "I don't know," Kethamol replied. "But whatever it was, they thought it was worth 10,000 ships to stop." The council fell silent again. Outside the Great Dome, stars twinkled peacefully, but now those same stars seemed different, less safe. If humans could hide such a massive fleet, what else was out there in the dark spaces between worlds? "What do we do?" asked the youngest council member, a floating sphere of living gas. Zexthara's crystal body pulsed with deep blue light. She was thinking hard. Finally she spoke. "We go to Earth. We demand answers. And we prepare for the possibility that everything we thought we knew about the galaxy is wrong." The meeting ended with more questions than answers. As the council members returned to their ships, each carried the same worry. Humanity had just revealed they were far more powerful than anyone imagined. The question was, were they friends or enemies? In the darkness of space, something watched the council station. It was small and fast, and completely invisible to their sensors. After a moment, it turned and flew toward Earth, carrying news of the aliens' plans. The game was about to begin. 6 of the galaxy's best ships traveled toward Earth. Each one came from a different alien civilization, bringing their most advanced technology and smartest scientists. They called themselves the Investigation Task Force, but everyone knew what they really were: the most powerful beings in the galaxy going to demand answers from humans. Dr. Kethamol stood on the bridge of the lead ship, watching Earth grow larger on the main screen. The planet looked beautiful from space, with blue oceans and white clouds. It seemed peaceful, like any normal world. Hard to believe it had produced the mysterious fleet that vanished. "Approaching Earth orbit," announced Captain Veltar. She was from the same crystal species as Admiral Zexathara, but younger and more curious than afraid. "Should I request permission to land?" "Yes," Kethmol replied. "But keep the deep scanners running. I want to know everything about this planet." The other ships in their group spread out around Earth. The ethereal collective ship became partly invisible, existing in several dimensions at once. The mechanosynthesis vessel, which looked like a floating city made of metal, began running millions of calculations per second. The science ship, crewed by mind readers, sent out invisible thoughts to touch human consciousness across the planet. What they found made no sense at all. "Sir, called out Science Officer Drennock. He had too many eyes, and all of them looked confused. The scans are showing something impossible. What is it? Earth's technology level is exactly what we expected. No advanced weapons, no shipbuilding facilities big enough for that fleet, but... Drennock paused, checking his instruments again. The quantum signatures are everywhere. Kethamol moved closer to the science station. Explain. Remember the energy patterns we detected from the mystery ships? Those same patterns are woven into Earth's very atoms. Every rock, every tree, every drop of water carries traces of those vessels. Before Kethamol could respond, a communication came from Earth's surface. A human woman appeared on the main screen. She had gray hair and wore a simple blue suit. Her smile seemed genuine. "Welcome to Earth," she said. "I'm President Sarah Chen. We're honored by your visit." "President Chen," Kethamol replied carefully. "We need to discuss some urgent matters with your people." "Of course. Please land at our capital spaceport. We have prepared facilities for all your species' needs." The task force landed in what humans called Washington, D.C. Kethamol was surprised by how open everything seemed. No heavy guards, no hidden weapons, no signs of fear. Humans walked around normally, some even stopping to wave at the alien visitors. President Chen met them, in person. She was smaller than most aliens were used to, but she carried herself with quiet confidence. Behind her stood other human officials, all looking curious rather than worried. "We understand you have questions about our space capabilities," President Chen began. "We're happy to share everything we know." General Korax, who had insisted on joining the mission, stepped forward. His massive armored body made the humans look tiny. "Where is your fleet?" he demanded. "Our fleet?" President Chen looked genuinely puzzled. "You mean our exploration ships? We have about 200 vessels currently in service. Would you like to see the complete records?" For the next 3 hours, the humans showed them everything. Ship designs, construction facilities, crew records, mission reports. It was all exactly what the aliens had expected from a developing civilization. Nothing that could build or hide 10,000 advanced warships, but the deeper scans told a different story. Dr. Yathara, the mind reader from the Scion Confederacy, pulled Kethamol aside. She looked troubled, which was unusual for her species. They were normally calm and confident. "Something is very wrong here," she whispered. "I've read the minds of hundreds of humans. They truly believe they only have small exploration ships, but their subconscious minds, there are blocks, walls I cannot break through. Memory blocks? Not exactly. It's like, imagine a room in your mind that you know exists, but every time you try to think about it, you forget what you were doing. They're not lying to us. They're not lying to themselves, but there are things they cannot remember." Meanwhile, the technical teams made their own discoveries. The mechanosynthesis computers found something strange in Earth's manufacturing records. The materials needed to build the mystery fleet had been produced, but in amounts so small and spread out over so many years that no human noticed the pattern. "Look at this," Engineer Sixon explained to Kethamol. His mechanical body whirred as he processed data. Over the past 50 years, human factories have produced exactly the right amounts of exotic metals, rare crystals, and quantum processors needed for those ships. But each factory only made tiny amounts. No single human knew they were building parts for a fleet. "That's impossible," Kethamol protested. "Who was coordinating all of this?" "Unknown. The orders came through normal business channels. Companies thought they were making parts for satellites, or medical equipment, or art projects. But when you add it all up, the pattern was clear. Someone or something had used human industry to build a massive fleet without any human realizing what they were doing. The investigation continued for weeks. The alien scientists used every tool they had. They scanned human cities, interviewed thousands of people, analyzed every piece of technology on Earth. The ethereal collective phase-shifted through multiple dimensions to look for hidden facilities. The Watchers, ancient beings who rarely spoke to anyone, emerged from their meditation to examine Earth with their cosmic awareness. Everything appeared normal, yet the evidence of the fleet was everywhere. President Chen remained helpful and patient throughout it all. She answered every question, allowed every scan, gave the aliens complete access to human records. If she was hiding something, she was the best actress in the galaxy. "I wish we could help you more," she told Kethmol during one of their meetings. "This mystery fleet sounds amazing. If our people built something like that, I'd love to know how we did it." But late at night, when the aliens thought no humans were watching, strange things happened. Security cameras caught glimpses of figures moving through the investigation sites. Not quite human, not quite alien, but something in between. When the aliens checked these recordings, the figures were gone, leaving only static. Dr. Yathara reported more disturbing dreams among her telepathic crew. Visions of vast ships moving through folded space, of guardians watching from the shadows, of a presence that felt ancient and protective. "It's like the whole planet is dreaming the same dream," she explained. "But every time I try to focus on it, it slips away." The most puzzling discovery came from the quantum analysis division. They found that Earth's space-time itself had been altered in subtle ways. Tiny changes that would be impossible to detect without the most advanced instruments. "It's as if reality has been edited," explained Dr. Zethel, whose species existed partly outside normal time. "Someone has rewritten the basic rules of physics around this world." After a month of investigation, the task force gathered to compare their findings. They had more data than ever before, but fewer answers. "The humans are telling the truth," Kethmol concluded. "They genuinely don't know about the fleet." "But the fleet was real," insisted General Korax. "Our sensors don't lie." "And it came from here," added Engineer Sixon. "The quantum signatures prove it." Dr. Yathara spoke softly. "I think something is protecting them, hiding the truth even from themselves." "But why?" asked Captain Veltar. Kethmol looked up at Earth through the ship's window. The blue planet seemed to glow softly in the starlight. "Maybe because the truth is too dangerous for them to know." As the task force prepared to leave Earth, none of them noticed the small changes happening around them. Their ship's computers worked a little better. Their crew members felt safer, though they couldn't say why. The space around Earth seemed somehow cleaner, as if something had swept away dangers they never knew existed. The investigation was over, but the mystery had only deepened. Somewhere out there, 10,000 human ships had vanished into the dark, and whatever force had created them was still watching, still waiting, still protecting a species that didn't even know they needed protection. The real question wasn't where the fleet had gone, it was what they were guarding against. Admiral Zexathera stood before the largest gathering of alien forces in galactic history. 7 different civilizations had contributed their best ships and crews to the search operation. The massive fleet stretched across space like a metal constellation, each vessel representing thousands of years of technological advancement. "Operation Deep Search begins now," Zexathera announced through the fleet communication system. "We will find these human ships wherever they are hiding." The search grid covered 3 entire galactic arms. Never before had so many different species worked together on a single mission. The crystal beings of the Vorthak Empire brought their reality-piercing sensors. The hive mind contributed processing power that could calculate the movement of every atom in a star system. The energy beings from stellar cores offered to search dimensions that solid matter couldn't reach. Commander Thralex, a warrior from the heavy gravity world of Corvain, led the military wing. His people were built like living fortresses, and his ship could punch through a moon. "If the humans are hiding, we will flush them out," he declared. But Dr. Kethmol, now promoted to Chief Science Officer of the operation, felt uneasy. Something about this whole situation bothered him. In his experience, when something seemed impossible, there was usually a much larger truth hiding beneath the surface. The first month of searching found nothing. The alien fleet spread across known space, using every detection method their sciences had developed. They searched asteroid belts and nebulae, checked every planet and moon, scanned the empty void between stars. The ethereal collective, beings who existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously, reported from their ship. "We have phase shifted through 17 different layers of reality. No trace of the human vessels in any of them. The Watchers, ancient creatures who had observed the galaxy since its birth, emerged from their long meditation for the first time in centuries. Their leader, a being so old its name had been forgotten, spoke in thoughts that bypassed language entirely. In all our years of watching, we have never seen ships simply cease to exist, yet the quantum echoes remain. As weeks passed, the search teams began to notice something strange. Wherever they went, space seemed cleaner. Pirate fleets that had terrorized trade routes for decades were nowhere to be found. Ancient space, hazards that had destroyed ships for thousands of years, had mysteriously become safe to navigate. Captain Veltar reported from the outer rim. The Bloodclaw raiders were supposed to be in this sector. Their base is here, but it's empty. No signs of battle, no debris, they just left. Similar reports came from across the galaxy. The Void Stalkers, mechanical pirates who had never retreated from a fight, had abandoned their territory. Plague ships which spread diseases between worlds had gone silent. Even the mysterious Shadow Fleet, which no one had ever seen but everyone feared, seemed to have vanished. Dr. Yuthara, the telepathic scientist, made an even more disturbing discovery. "My people are having shared dreams," she reported to the command ship. "Visions of guardian shadows moving through space. We see protectors in the darkness, watching over travelers, keeping dangers away." "Dreams aren't evidence," General Korax grumbled, but even he seemed less certain than usual. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source. The Quantum Physics Division, led by Dr. Zethel's team of time-sensitive beings, detected something in the space-time fabric itself. "Reality has been altered," Dr. Zethel reported during the daily briefing. His species could see time like others saw color. Not just around Earth, but throughout the galaxy. Tiny changes so small we almost missed them. "What kind of changes?" Zexthara asked. "Protective modifications. It's as if someone has been editing the basic laws of physics to make space safer. Dangerous asteroid fields have been moved. Unstable stars have been stabilized. Even the probability of accidents has been reduced." Kethmol felt a chill run through his jellyfish body. "How long has this been happening?" "Hard to say exactly. The changes are so subtle they blend into background reality. But if I had to guess, maybe 3 weeks?" The same time the human fleet had disappeared. The search operation continued for 3 more months, but the pattern became clearer each day. The human ships weren't hiding in some secret base or alien dimension. They were everywhere and nowhere, working in ways that went beyond normal understanding. Trade Captain Silani reported from the merchant route. "My cargo ship broke down in dead space, should have been stranded for weeks. But somehow, our distress signal reached a rescue ship immediately. The pilot said he just felt like checking that sector." Explorer Vexhun found something even stranger in the deep dark, the empty space between galactic arms. Sensors detected a massive gravitational anomaly that should have torn my ship apart. But when I got there, space was completely normal. It's like something redirected the danger around me. The most powerful minds in the galaxy worked together to understand what was happening. The collective consciousness ran calculations for days without stopping. The ancient machines processed every piece of data they had collected. The cosmic oracles consulted forces beyond physical reality. Their conclusion was impossible to accept, but impossible to deny. "The human fleet hasn't disappeared," Dr. Kethmol announced to the assembled command staff. "It has dispersed, scattered across time and space in a pattern we can't fully detect." "What does that mean?" demanded General Korax. Dr. Zethel answered, his voice carrying the weight of temporal knowledge. "They exist in quantum superposition, present everywhere they might be needed, but visible only when they choose to act. They've become part of the galaxy's protective systems." Princess Yelena, the energy being, flickered with confusion. But why? What could make humans sacrifice their physical existence for such a purpose? "To guard against something," Kethmol replied quietly. "Something that required the ultimate defense." As if his words had triggered a response, Every sensor array in the search fleet suddenly activated at once. Alarms began ringing throughout the massive formation of ships. On the main display, a new reading appeared at the very edge of galactic space. It was massive, darker than the void between stars, and it was moving toward them. "What is that?" Zexathara demanded. The sensor technician's voice shook as he replied, "Unknown, Admiral, but it's bigger than anything we've ever seen. The gravity readings are off our scales." Dr. Kethamol stared at the display, and suddenly everything made sense. The human fleet, the defensive modifications to reality, the way space had become safer wherever they looked. "It's what they were preparing for," he whispered. The humans knew this was coming. The thing at the edge of space moved closer, and as it did, space itself seemed to bend around it. Stars flickered and dimmed in its wake. It wasn't just large, it was wrong in ways that hurt to think about. "All ships, prepare for emergency jump to Earth," Zexathara ordered. "We need answers, and we need them now." But as the alien fleet prepared to flee, something else appeared on their sensors. Faint at first, like shadows moving through starlight but growing stronger. Ships began to materialize around the approaching darkness. Ships that shouldn't exist, crewed by humans who had supposedly vanished. The mystery fleet had returned, but they weren't coming home. They were going to war. And for the first time since this all began, the aliens understood why humans had been willing to sacrifice everything. Some threats were so terrible that you didn't fight them for victory. You fought them so others could live. The real battle was about to begin, and humanity had spent 3 months preparing the galaxy for a war it didn't know was coming. The question now wasn't where the human ships had gone. It was whether their sacrifice would be enough to save everyone else. The emergency council session was unlike anything in galactic history. Representatives from every known civilization crowded into the Great Hall, their various forms of communication creating a storm of noise. Fear filled the air so thick you could taste it. On the main display, the approaching darkness grew larger by the hour. Scientists had given it a name, the Devourer. It was bigger than solar systems and hungrier than black holes. Wherever it passed, space itself ceased to exist, leaving nothing but empty void behind. Admiral Zexathara's crystal body flickered between colors as she tried to maintain order. "The deep space monitors show it will reach the outer colonies within 6 months," she announced. "Our combined fleets cannot stop something that large." General Korak slammed his armored fist on the council table, making the entire structure shake. "Then we evacuate, pull back to the core worlds and make our stand there." "There is nowhere to run," said Princess Yelana sadly. Her energy form dimmed as she spoke. "This thing consumes space itself. Eventually, it will devour the entire galaxy." The council erupted in arguments. Some species wanted to fight, others to flee, still others to try negotiating with the cosmic horror approaching them. But in the midst of all the chaos, one voice asked for attention. "May I speak?" Everyone turned to look. In the corner of the chamber sat an old being that most had forgotten was there. The archivist was so ancient that his species had no name anyone remembered. He looked like a combination of tree, crystal, and starlight, and he had been recording galactic history since the galaxy was young. "Honored archivist," Zexathara said respectfully, "we would be grateful for your wisdom." The ancient being slowly rose from his seat. When he moved, reality seemed to bend slightly around him, as if space itself was making room for something that had existed longer than most stars. "I have been alive for 7 million years, the archivist began, his voice carrying the weight of eons. "I have seen civilizations rise and fall, watched stars be born and die, recorded the history of countless worlds. And in all that time, I have seen this pattern before." He waved a limb that might have been an arm, and crystalline memories began to form in the air above the council table. Images of the galaxy as it was millions of years ago, filled with different species and strange technologies. "The Devourer comes every few million years," he continued. "It is not alive in any way we understand. It is entropy itself, given form and purpose, the end of all things, seeking to return the universe to the void from which it came. How did the ancient civilizations survive? Asked Dr. Kethmol. The archivist's form shimmered, and the crystalline memories changed to show massive battles between cosmic forces. But at the center of each conflict, Kethmol saw something that made his tentacles freeze in shock. Humans, or beings that looked remarkably like humans. They appear when the galaxy faces extinction, the archivist explained. Not the same individuals, but the same pattern, the same essence. Sometimes they are energy beings, sometimes mechanical constructs, sometimes biological entities like the current humans of Earth, but always with the same core traits. What traits? Zexthara demanded. Adaptability beyond reason. The ability to unite impossible coalitions. Courage that borders on insanity. And most importantly, the willingness to sacrifice everything without asking for glory in return. More memories filled the air. The council watched in amazement as human-like beings led desperate battles against cosmic horrors, built impossible weapons, made alliances between species that had nothing in common except the will to survive. But this time is different, the archivist continued. In previous cycles, the Guardian pattern appeared and fought and died and was forgotten. This time, they chose to let you know they exist. Why? Asked Captain Veltar. The ancient being's form grew brighter, and for a moment, everyone in the chamber felt the weight of his vast knowledge, because this time they need your help. The council fell silent. The idea that humans needed help from anyone seemed impossible. They had just demonstrated abilities beyond anything the galaxy had seen. The Devourer is stronger now than it has ever been, the archivist explained. It has learned from its previous defeats. The old methods of stopping it will not work. The Guardian pattern cannot succeed alone. What do they need us to do? Zexthara asked. Before the archivist could answer, the lights in the chamber flickered. Reality rippled like water, and suddenly a new presence filled the room. Not threatening, but so powerful that every sensor array in the station went crazy trying to measure it. A simple human ship materialized in the center of the council chamber. Not through any door or portal, not by breaking through the hull, but by simply becoming real in the space above the assembly. It was smaller than most shuttles, painted plain white with simple markings that read Earth Fleet in basic letters. The ship's airlock opened, and a woman stepped out. She looked completely ordinary, maybe 40 years old, with brown hair pulled back in a simple ponytail. She wore a standard military uniform with captain's stripes on the shoulders. Her name tag read Santos. She could have been anyone, a teacher, a shopkeeper, someone you might pass on the street without a second glance. But when she looked at the assembled representatives of galactic civilization, her eyes held depths that seemed older than stars. "Hello," Captain Maria Santos said in perfectly normal English, which the translation devices changed into appropriate languages for each species. "Thank you for waiting. Sorry we're late." The council chamber, which had been filled with noise and argument moments before, was now completely silent. Beings who had lived for thousands of years stared at this ordinary human woman who had just materialized a starship inside a sealed space station. "You're from the missing fleet," Zexthara finally managed to say. "Missing?" Captain Santos smiled, and there was something both sad and hopeful in her expression. "We're not missing. We've been working. 3 weeks ago, the Devourer sent scout forces ahead of its main body. We've been fighting a holding action ever since, buying time for the galaxy to discover the threat and prepare." "Scout forces?" Dr. Kethmol asked. "We detected no battles, no weapons fire, no debris." "You wouldn't," Santos replied. "We fight in folded space, in dimensions your sensors can't reach. Every day we hold back probes and tendrils and hungry shadows that want to consume entire star systems. Every day we lose ships and people to keep the rest of you safe." General Korak stepped forward, his massive frame towering over the small human. "What do you want from us?" Captain Santos looked up at him without fear. "Your help. The Devourer has learned new tricks. It's sending parts of itself through time, trying to attack the galaxy from multiple temporal angles at once. We can hold it back for now, but we can't do it forever. What kind of help? Princess Yelena asked. We need you to stop being afraid, Santos said simply. Fear is what the devourer feeds on. Despair, hopelessness, the belief that some things cannot be fought. We need you to hope instead. That's it? Zexathara sounded incredulous. You want us to think happy thoughts? Captain Santos laughed, and the sound was purely human, warm and real and completely unafraid. Admiral, hope is the most powerful force in the universe. It's what turns ordinary people into heroes. It's what makes impossible things possible. And right now, it's the only weapon we have that the devourer can't consume. She looked around. The chamber at all the different species. All the varied forms of life that had somehow found ways to work together despite their differences. For 7 million years my people have fought this battle alone, she continued. We appeared, fought, died, and were forgotten. But this time, we want to be remembered. Because this time we're not just fighting to save the galaxy. We're fighting to prove that life itself is worth preserving. The archivist spoke from his corner. What do you need us to do, Guardian? Captain Santos turned to the ancient being and nodded respectfully. Build ships, train crews, prepare for the strangest war you've ever imagined, and trust that when the time comes, ordinary beings can do extraordinary things. She looked back at the council. The devourer will be here in 6 months. We have that long to teach an entire galaxy how to fight entropy itself. And if we fail? Asked Captain Veltar. Captain Santos smiled again, and this time it was the expression of someone who had never learned how to give up. Then we fail together. But we won't fail. Because that's not what humans do. And it's not what any of you do either, when it really matters. The emergency session ended with the most unlikely decision in galactic history. 12 advanced civilizations agreed to follow the lead of a species they had considered primitive just weeks before, because sometimes the most ordinary people turn out to be exactly what the universe needs. 6 months later, the greatest fleet in galactic history gathered at the edge of known space. Ships from every civilization hung in perfect formation, their hulls gleaming with new weapons and shields designed using human knowledge. The Crystal. Beings of Vorthak had armed their vessels with reality anchors. The hive mind had built processors that could calculate hope itself. Even the ancient Watchers had emerged from meditation to join the battle line. At the center of the formation floated Captain Santos's simple white ship, looking tiny next to the massive alien warships. But around it, space shimmered with the presence of the human fleet. 10,000 ghost ships that existed between dimensions, ready to become solid when needed. Devourer approaching, reported the sensor operator aboard Admiral Zexathara's flagship. Distance, 1 light hour and closing. Through the main view screen they could see it coming. The Devourer wasn't just large, it was wrong in ways that hurt to look at directly. Where it passed, stars went out. Space itself folded inward like paper being crumpled by an invisible hand. It moved without sound, without heat, consuming everything in its path and leaving only empty void behind. All ships, this is Captain Santos, came the human's voice over the communication system. Remember what we practiced. This isn't about firepower or technology. It's about refusing to let darkness win. The preparation had been the strangest 6 months in galactic history. Humans had taught alien engineers how to build weapons that fired concentrated hope. They had shown telepaths how to project courage across star systems. Most importantly, they had convinced every species in the galaxy that some things were worth fighting for, no matter how impossible the odds seemed. Beginning Phase 1, Santos announced calmly. The first wave of attacks came from the Devourer's scouts. Creatures of living darkness that moved faster than light and could drain the will to live from entire worlds. But as they approached the Allied fleet, something unexpected happened. The darkness began to slow down. Then it began to retreat. Impossibility barriers holding, reported Dr. Kethmol from the science ship. The probability fields are working. Humans had taught them that impossibility was just another word for something no one had tried hard enough to achieve. Now the Allied fleet was surrounded by fields of pure possibility, making it difficult for the Devourer's scouts to maintain their existence. But the main body of the cosmic horror was much stronger. As it drew closer, reality began to break down around the edges. Ships started aging rapidly, then reversing back to when they were first built. Time moved in circles and space forgot which direction was up. Some vessels simply stopped existing, not destroyed but erased from the universe's memory. All ships, prepare for Phase 2, Santos ordered. The human fleet materialized fully, their ghost ships becoming solid and real. They were beautiful and terrible, crafted from materials that shouldn't exist and powered by engines that ran on pure determination. They moved like dancers, weaving between the Allied vessels and creating patterns of light that seemed to push back against the encroaching darkness. "What are they doing?" General Korax demanded as his massive warship shuddered under the Devourer's influence. "Creating a narrative," replied Dr. Yathara, the telepathic scientist. "They're telling the universe a story about how this battle ends, and in their story, we win. It was impossible, but it was working." The Devourer slowed its advance, confused by the patterns of light and hope surrounding the Allied fleet. For, something that fed on despair and entropy, the sight of so many different species working together was like poison. But the cosmic horror had been alive for billions of years. It learned quickly. Tendrils of absolute nothingness lashed out from the Devourer's core, wrapping around human ships and squeezing them out of existence. Entire squadrons vanished in seconds, their crews erased so completely that no one could remember they had ever lived. "Santos," Admiral Zexathara called out, "your people are dying." "Yes," came the calm reply. "That's what we do." More human ships disappeared, but each loss seemed to make the remaining vessels stronger. The patterns of light grew brighter, the impossible became more possible, and the story they were telling became more real. Princess Yelena, the energy being, suddenly understood what was happening. "They're not just fighting," she whispered. "They're transforming themselves into living weapons against entropy." Each human ship that was destroyed didn't really die. Instead, it became part of the pattern, part of the story, part of the hope that held the universe together. They were writing themselves into the basic laws of reality, making their victory inevitable through sheer force of will. But the Devourer was adapting. It began to split itself, attacking from multiple time periods at once. Past versions of the cosmic horror appeared alongside future echoes, creating a temporal storm that threatened to tear spacetime apart. "This is it," Captain Santos announced. "Phase 3. All Allied ships, give us everything you've got. Every weapon, every shield, every ounce of power you can spare." "What are you doing?" Zexthara demanded. "Something that's never been tried before," Santos replied. "We're going to make the Devourer choose." The human fleet began to sing. It wasn't music in any normal sense. It was harmony made from the voices of 10,000 dying ships, a melody composed of last words and final thoughts, and the absolute refusal to surrender. The song spread outward, carried by quantum fields and probability waves, until it touched every living thing in the galaxy. And everywhere the song reached, people began to sing along. On 1,000 different worlds, in 1,000,000 different languages, beings who had never met began to harmonize. The crystal people of Vorthak chimed like bells. The machine intelligences added electronic rhythms. The energy beings contributed sounds like stellar wind and solar fire. Even the plants and simple animals seemed to join in, adding their own voices to the growing chorus. The Devourer stopped moving. For the first time in its billion-year existence, it was hearing something it had never encountered before. The sound of an entire galaxy refusing to give up hope. "Choose," Captain Santos said, her voice somehow reaching across space to address the cosmic horror directly. "You can consume us, but you cannot consume what we represent. You can destroy our bodies, but you cannot destroy the idea that life is worth preserving." The Devourer writhed in space, its impossible form twisting as it tried to understand this new equation. It had always faced individual worlds, single species, isolated civilizations that fell one by one to despair. But this was different. This was unity on a scale it had never seen. Choose, Santos repeated. Entropy or evolution, destruction or transformation, the end of all things, or the beginning of something new. For a long moment, the cosmic horror hesitated. Then slowly, impossibly, it began to change. The darkness that had defined it for eons started to shift and flow, reorganizing itself into something that hurt less to look at. The tendrils of nothingness became streams of possibility. The hunger that consumed everything transformed into curiosity about what might grow in the spaces between stars. "It's working," Dr. Kethmol whispered, his tentacles trembling with amazement. "The devourer is choosing to become something else." The transformation took hours, watched by the combined fleets and felt by every living thing in the galaxy. When it was over, the cosmic horror was gone. In its place floated something new, not quite alive, not quite machine, but definitely no longer interested in ending the universe. Captain Santos's ship approached the transformed entity, and somehow her simple human voice could still be heard across space. "Welcome to the galaxy. We have a lot to show you." The crisis was over, but the changes it had brought were permanent. Humans revealed that they had always known this day would come, guided by quantum echoes from their own future selves. The technology that had seemed impossible was borrowed from their descendants. The mysterious disappearance was a necessary sacrifice to create a temporal defense grid that protected the entire galaxy. But most importantly, 12 different civilizations had learned they could work together. They had discovered that hope really was stronger than fear, that life really was worth fighting for, and that sometimes the most ordinary people turned out to be exactly what the universe needed. Admiral Zexathara found herself standing next to Captain Santos as the Allied fleets prepared to return home. The human looked tired but satisfied, like someone who had finished a difficult job well. "What happens now?" Zexathara asked. Santos smiled, and it was the expression of someone who had never learned how to give up. Now we build something better. A galaxy where no one has to fight alone, where hope is shared freely and where the most impossible things become possible through cooperation." She looked out at the stars, which seemed brighter now than they had before. Besides, there are other galaxies out there, other civilizations that might need help someday. And now they'll have the greatest alliance in the universe to call on. The human fleet began to fade back into quantum superposition, becoming guardians, in the shadows once again. But this time they weren't alone. The Allied civilizations had chosen to remember them, to honor their sacrifice, and to continue the work they had started. And in the deep spaces between stars, where entropy once ruled, humanity was just a legend. Until their warfleet emerged from Deep Space Part 1. Whispers of the Lost Species. The stars looked different from the observation deck of Outpost Zeta 9. Commander Ilara Voss stood with her hands behind her back, watching the slow dance of distant suns. She had served the Galactic Consortium for 15 years, but lately, her mind kept returning to the old stories. "Commander, you requested these files?" A young officer approached, holding a datapad. Ilara nodded. "Thank you, Officer Lund. The files contained the oldest records in the Consortium archives. Most officials never bothered with them. Why look backward when 12 advanced species worked together to build a perfect future?" But Ilara had always been drawn to the mysteries of the past. She scrolled through the ancient texts and stopped at the section that had become her obsession, the 13th species. According to legend, before the Consortium formed, another intelligent species had reached the stars. They called themselves humans. The records described them as adaptable, quick to learn, and dangerously unpredictable. Then, after a terrible war 300 years ago, they simply vanished. Most scholars believed humans had gone extinct. Others thought they were just stories to scare children. Behave, or the humans will come with their war machines. Ilara believed something else, something she rarely shared with others. "Commander Voss, Admiral Kraz requests your presence at the morning briefing," her communication device announced. She sighed and closed the files. The mysteries of the past would have to wait. The briefing room was filled with representatives from all 12 species of the consortium. Some floated in suspension tanks. Others sat on specially designed chairs. A few stood like Ilara, who was from the Taraxian species, tall, blue-skinned humanoids known for their diplomatic skills. Admiral Kraz, a massive zenith with scale-covered skin and 4 eyes, looked annoyed as usual. "We have all received the expedition requests from the Science Division," Kraz rumbled. "I see no reason to waste resources on another archaeological mission to the outer sectors." Ilara stepped forward. "Admiral, the artifacts we discovered on the last expedition show clear signs of technology we've never seen before. They could be human artifacts?" Kraz made a sound like rocks grinding together, a zenith laugh. "Commander Voss, your fascination with fairy tales is well known, but we need our ships for real threats, not ghost hunts." Several officials nodded in agreement. Ilara felt her face grow warm, but she kept her voice steady. "With respect, Admiral, ignoring our history makes us vulnerable to repeating it." Before Kraz could respond, the door slid open. A thin, nervous-looking man with pale skin rushed in. Science Officer Alan Richardson was the only human-like species in the room besides Ilara, though his people, the Viridians, came from the opposite side of the galaxy. "Forgive the interruption," Richardson said, slightly out of breath. "We've detected something unusual." Kraz's 4 eyes narrowed. "This had better be important, Science Officer." Richardson activated the room's holographic display. A map of the galaxy appeared with a blinking red dot at the very edge. 3 days ago, our long-range sensors detected this energy signature in the uncharted regions. It disappeared before we could analyze it. "Equipment malfunction," someone suggested. Richardson shook his head. "Yesterday it appeared again closer, and today we detected multiple signatures, all moving in formation." The room fell silent. Formation meant intelligence. Intelligence meant ships. "How many?" Kraz asked. Richardson swallowed. "At least 50 vessels, Admiral. Possibly many more." Murmurs spread through the room. The consortium hadn't faced an unknown species in generations. Their territory was considered secure. "And the energy readings?" Ilara asked, studying the display closely. "Unlike anything in our database," Richardson said. "The power levels are extraordinary." Admiral Kraz stood straighter, all signs of boredom gone. "Activate defense protocols across all border stations. I want a reconnaissance fleet assembled immediately." As officials rushed to carry out orders, Ilara motioned for Richardson to stay behind. "Those coordinates," she said quietly when they were alone. "They're coming from the same sector as the artifact we found last month." Richardson's eyes widened. "The device with the strange markings? I thought it was non-functional." "It wasn't. Until last night." Ilara pulled a small object from her pocket. It looked like a simple metal cube, but one side now glowed with symbols no one had been able to translate. "It activated on its own. And look at this." She pressed a section of the cube. The air above it shimmered, and a star map appeared, nearly identical to the one Richardson had just shown. "This can't be coincidence," he whispered. "Alan, I think they're coming back." Ilara could barely contain the excitement in her voice. "The humans, the lost 13th species." Richardson looked troubled. "If those are human ships, why now, after 300 years of silence?" "I don't know, but I intend to find out." Later that night, Ilara returned to her quarters. She knew she should rest before tomorrow's emergency meetings, but sleep seemed impossible. Instead, she connected to the station's private research network. Using her commander's clearance, she accessed the sealed records, the true accounts, of the Severance War, not the sanitized version taught in consortium schools. The records contained first-hand reports of human warfare that seemed too terrible to be true. Reports claimed humans had fought with a ferocity no consortium species understood. When outmatched, they didn't surrender but became more dangerous. They used tactics considered dishonorable or insane. They sacrificed themselves for strategic advantage. One report described a single damaged human ship destroying 3 consortium cruisers by deliberately causing its own reactor to explode. Another told of human soldiers continuing to fight with injuries that should have been fatal. The final records detailed the consortium's victory and the humans' retreat to unknown space. But something in the official account had always bothered Alara, a sense that parts were missing or changed. Her screen suddenly flickered. For a moment, she thought the system was malfunctioning. Then a message appeared. Access to these files has been traced. Caution advised. Not all eyes watching are friendly. The message vanished before she could respond. Alara quickly disconnected from the network, her heart racing. Someone knew what she was researching and had risked breaking security protocols to warn her. A tone sounded from her communication device. Commander Voss, please report to the sensor array immediately. Richardson's voice sounded strange, controlled but with an undercurrent of something she'd never heard from him before. Fear. The sensor room was dark, except for the glow of screens. Richardson stood alone, his face lit by blue light. I called. Only you, because I don't know who to trust, he said without turning around. The signals are clearer now. They'll reach our outer defense perimeter by morning. Have you identified the ships? Alara asked. Richardson nodded slowly. Not exactly, but I've been comparing energy signatures with every record in our archives, including the restricted ones. He glanced at her. The same ones you were just reading. How did you? It doesn't matter. He pointed to his screen. The propulsion technology these ships are using matches theoretical designs from old human war plans. Plans the consortium confiscated 3 centuries ago. Alara leaned closer to the screen. Are you certain? The basic principles are the same, but the execution is far more advanced. If these are human ships, their technology has evolved dramatically during their absence. A new alert flashed on the screen. Richardson tapped several controls, then stepped back in shock. They're broadcasting, he whispered. A message was repeating across all frequencies, in all 12 languages of the consortium. The words appeared, on the screen one by one. We are the fleet of Earth. We have returned. Prepare for contact. Alara's breath caught in her throat. Earth, the human homeworld, long thought destroyed or abandoned. The legend was real, and it was coming. Humanity was just a legend, until their war fleet emerged from Deep Space Part 2, First Contact Protocols. 3 days passed in a blur of emergency meetings and military preparations. The Consortium Council remained divided on how to respond to the approaching fleet. Some wanted to greet the humans with diplomacy, others prepared for war. Alara spent those days watching data streams and sensor reports. The human ships moved with perfect coordination, maintaining formation even across vast distances. They made no aggressive moves, but they didn't respond to messages either, except for their first announcement. Commander Voss, the Council has reached a decision. The message came from High Counselor Pella, the oldest member of the governing body. 15 minutes later, Alara stood before the full council. Admiral Kraz glared at her from his position near the front. Commander, Counselor Pella began, your background in xenocultural relations and your unusual interest in human history make you our best choice for this mission. Alara kept her face neutral, though her heart raced. What mission, Counselor? First contact, Pella said simply. You will lead a diplomatic team to meet with these visitors. Kraz stepped forward. With proper military escort, of course. Lieutenant Kyle Brennan will command a security team to accompany you. A man in a gray military uniform stepped forward. He was from the Arcadian species, slightly shorter than Alara, with copper-colored skin and alert eyes. Arcadians were known for their tactical minds and quick reflexes. My team is ready, Commander, Brennan said, his voice cool and professional. Alara nodded to him, then turned back to the council. When do we leave? Immediately, Pella said. The human fleet has stopped at the edge of the Proxima system. They appear to be waiting. The shuttle journey was tense. Alara reviewed her notes while Lieutenant Brennan briefed his 6-person security team. Richardson had insisted on joining the mission as their science advisor. Approaching visual range, the pilot announced. Alara moved to the front viewport and gasped. The human fleet was massive, Dozens of ships filled the space ahead, ranging from nimble fighters to enormous carriers. The vessels were dark gray with minimal lighting, making them look like shadows against the stars. Many showed signs of battle damage, scorch marks, and patched hull sections that suggested years of conflict. At the center floated the largest ship any of them had ever seen. Its hull was covered with what appeared to be layered armor plates, giving it the look of an ancient sea creature. "The flagship is hailing us," the communications officer said. Ilara straightened her uniform. "Accept the transmission." The screen showed a woman with olive skin and short black hair. She wore a dark blue uniform with unfamiliar insignia. Her face showed no emotion, but her eyes studied them with intense focus. "This is Captain Natalie Harper of the Earth Alliance vessel Horizon. You are cleared to dock in Bay 4. The transmission ended before Ilara could respond. "They're not big on conversation," Brennan muttered. "They don't need to be," Richardson said quietly. He was staring at sensor readings on his pad. "Those ships have enough firepower to destroy half the consortium fleet." Bay 4 was enormous, containing several smaller Earth vessels along with their shuttle. Armed human guards stood at regular intervals around the perimeter. They wore armored suits that enhanced their size, making them look more intimidating. A delegation of 5 humans waited as Ilara's team disembarked. Captain Harper stood at the front, flanked by officers in similar uniforms. "Commander Voss," Harper said, stepping forward. "Welcome aboard the Horizon." Ilara performed the traditional consortium greeting gesture. "Captain Harper, the Galactic Consortium extends peaceful greetings to Earth and humanity." Harper didn't return the gesture. Instead, she motioned toward a corridor. "This way. Admiral Reeves is waiting." As they walked through the ship, Ilara noticed small details that contradicted old records. The humans were not the primitive warriors described in consortium texts. Their technology seemed advanced, possibly beyond consortium standards in some areas. The ship's interior was utilitarian but well-designed. No wasted space, no unnecessary decorations. Everything served a purpose. The crew they passed worked with quiet efficiency, though many stopped to stare at the aliens walking among them. Lieutenant Brennan stayed close to Ilara, his hand never far from his weapon. His security team formed a protective circle around Richardson, who was recording everything with his datapad. They reached a large room with a circular table. Star maps covered the walls, showing consortium space in greater detail than should have been possible. A tall man with silver hair and dark skin stood studying one of the maps. He turned as they entered, revealing a face marked by old scars. "Commander Voss," Harper said formally. "This is Admiral William Reeves, Supreme Commander of the Earth Alliance Defense Fleet." Reeves assessed the consortium delegation with calm eyes. 300 years, he said, his voice deep and measured. "It's been 300 years since our peoples last met." "A historic moment," Ilara agreed. "The consortium has many questions." "I imagine you do." Reeves gestured to the table. "Please sit." Once everyone was seated, Harper placed a small device in the center of the table. It projected a 3-dimensional image of the galaxy, with certain regions highlighted in red. "Let me be direct," Reeves said. "We haven't returned for a social visit. We've been monitoring consortium space from afar. You have a problem you don't know about yet." Brennan leaned forward. "What kind of problem?" "Infiltration," Harper replied. "An enemy we thought defeated has returned. They work from within, corrupting governments and civilizations." Ilara felt a chill. "What enemy?" "We call them void harvesters," Reeves said. "You wouldn't know them by that name. They don't announce themselves. They take over minds slowly, subtly. By the time you realize what's happening, it's too late." Richardson was the first to make the connection. "The lost records," he whispered. "There are gaps in our historical archives from the time before humanity's disappearance." "Because they've been erased," Harper confirmed. "The harvesters have agents within your leadership. They've been rewriting your history." Lieutenant Brennan stood abruptly. "This is absurd. You expect us to believe invisible mind controllers are running our government? This sounds like an excuse for invasion." A new voice spoke from the doorway. It's no excuse, Lieutenant. Everyone turned. A human woman with short brown hair and intense eyes walked in. She wore armor different from the others, lightweight, and clearly designed for combat. "This is Commander Samantha Wells," Harper said. "Our head of special operations." Wells threw a data module onto the table. "Evidence, surveillance we've gathered over 50 years. Communications between harvester agents. Biodata showing neural pattern alterations in affected individuals." Richardson picked up the module cautiously. "How do we know this isn't fabricated?" "You don't," Wells admitted. "Yet. But you will when your own people start acting strangely." She looked directly at Alara. "It's already happening, isn't it, Commander? People making decisions that don't make sense. Officials with suddenly changed positions on key issues." Alara thought of recent consortium decisions that had puzzled her, including the dismantling of long-range monitoring stations that might have detected the human fleet sooner. "Even if what you say is true," she said carefully, "why did humanity wait 3 centuries to warn us?" Reeves and Harper exchanged glances. "We didn't just retreat after the war," Reeves finally said. "We were nearly extinct. The harvesters targeted us first because we discovered them. We needed time to rebuild, to develop weapons that could fight them." "And now?" Brennan asked. "Now we've detected increased harvester activity in consortium space," Harper said. "Their main force is awakening. We're here because this fight concerns us all." Wells leaned across the table. "The legends got one thing right, Lieutenant. Humans are dangerous in war. But we're not your enemy. We're your only chance." As if to emphasize her point, alarms suddenly blared throughout the ship. Harper touched her communication device. "Report," she ordered. The response came through speakers for all to hear. "Captain, we've detected anomalous energy signatures entering the system. Configuration matches Harvester scout ships." Reeves turned to the consortium delegation. "It seems our old friends have noticed our reunion." His voice remained calm, but his eyes hardened. "Now you'll see what we've been fighting all these years." Alara and Brennan exchanged worried glances. First contact had just become first combat. Humanity was just a legend. Until their war fleet emerged from Deep Space Part 3, the archives of Earth battle stations, Captain Harper ordered. Around them, the ship transformed as crew members rushed to their posts. Admiral Reeves remained. "Come and Captain, escort our guests to the observation deck. They should see this," Lieutenant Brennan protested. "My team should return to our shuttle. The consortium needs to be warned." "Communications are being jammed," Commander Wells said, checking a small device on her wrist. "Standard harvester tactic. They don't want word spreading." Harper led them through corridors now filled with purposeful activity. Humans moved with practiced efficiency, their faces set with determination rather than fear. The observation deck offered a panoramic view of space. Outside, the human fleet was changing formation. Smaller ships moved to protective positions while larger vessels powered up weapon systems. "There," Richardson pointed to distant lights approaching. The harvester ships looked wrong somehow. Their hulls seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. They moved in strange patterns, sometimes appearing to flicker in and out of normal space. "Only 4 scout ships," Wells noted. "A reconnaissance force, not an attack group." Harper nodded. "Typical. They're assessing our strength." On a nearby screen, they watched human fighters launch from carrier ships. The small craft accelerated at speeds that seemed impossible, executing maneuvers that defied normal physics. "Your pilots," Alara said, amazed. "How can they withstand such forces?" "Neural interface systems," Richardson answered before any human could speak. He was studying the data scrolling across another screen. "They're connecting directly to their ships." Harper looked impressed. "You have good eyes, science officer." Outside, the human fighters engaged the harvester scouts. Energy weapons flashed across the void. One harvester ship vanished in a silent explosion. "The Council needs this information immediately," Brennan insisted. Reeves considered this, then nodded. "Agreed. Captain, prepare their shuttle for departure. Commander Wells, you'll escort them back to consortium space." Wells looked surprised. "Admiral?" "This is an opportunity," Reeves explained. Show them the archives. They need to understand what we're facing. The journey back was tense. Commander Wells piloted their shuttle herself, with 2 human soldiers as additional crew. The rest of the human fleet remained behind, engaging the Harvester scouts. Where are we going? Ilara asked. This isn't the route back to Consortium space. Detour, Wells replied. We're taking you to Station Echo. It contains our historical archives. Richardson leaned forward eagerly. Original records from before the Severance War? Wells nodded. And after. Everything the Consortium tried to erase. Brennan remained suspicious. How convenient that these harvesters appear just as you arrive with warnings about them. Not convenient, Wells said. Inevitable. They've been monitoring us just as we've been watching them. The shuttle approached what looked like a small asteroid. As they drew closer, hidden hangar doors opened in its surface. A stealth outpost, Brennan said, professional interest overcoming his suspicion. No wonder our sensors never detected it. Inside the asteroid was a surprisingly large facility. Human personnel moved about their duties, many stopping to stare at the Consortium visitors. This station has been here for 50 years, Wells explained as she led them through secure doors. One of many we've established throughout Consortium space. You've been spying on us, Brennan accused. Protecting you, Wells corrected. There's a difference. They entered a vast circular room filled with data terminals. At the center stood a holographic projection system currently displaying star charts. An older human man with glasses approached. Commander Wells, these are our guests from the Consortium? Dr. Paul Jackson, our chief historian, Wells introduced him. Doctor, they need to see the truth. Jackson nodded gravely. Which part? There's too much for one viewing. Show them how it started, Wells said. Show them Earth. Jackson activated the central console. The room darkened and the holographic display changed to show a blue-green planet. Earth, Jackson said. Our homeworld as it was 400 years ago. The image zoomed in to show cities, oceans, and signs of a thriving civilization. When we first achieved faster-than-light travel, we discovered the early Consortium. Only 5 species then. We were welcomed initially. The display showed meetings between humans and alien species, the signing of treaties, the exchange of technology. Then we noticed inconsistencies, Jackson continued. Diplomatic missions that went missing, leaders who suddenly changed long-held positions. We investigated. The display shifted to scientific data, neural scans, and surveillance footage. We discovered the Harvesters, a parasitic species that can attach to sentient beings and gradually take control. They had already infiltrated parts of the early Consortium leadership. Richardson studied the neural scans with growing horror. These patterns, they're similar to anomalies our medical teams have reported but couldn't explain. We tried to warn the Consortium, Jackson said as the display showed human diplomats presenting evidence. But the Harvesters had too much influence. They turned the other species against us. The hologram now showed the beginning of the war, human colonies burning, Earthships defending against Consortium fleets. We fought back, Wells said quietly. We had to. The next images showed human warships using tactics that shocked the Consortium visitors, ramming maneuvers, ships deliberately overloading their reactors, ground forces fighting with savage determination. The legends of human warfare weren't exaggerated, Ilara realized. We're adaptable, Wells said. When survival is at stake, we become whatever we need to be. The final war footage showed Earth itself under attack, its atmosphere burning. We couldn't win conventionally, Jackson explained. So we enacted the Exodus Protocol. We made it appear that Earth was destroyed and humanity was on the brink of extinction. The display showed massive ships, early versions of the fleet they had just seen, carrying thousands of humans into deep space. But we didn't just run, Wells added. Some stayed behind, living in secret. Others established hidden outposts like this one. We've been watching, gathering evidence, preparing for the day the Harvesters would make their move. Why would these Harvesters wait so long? Brennan asked. They're patient, Jackson replied. They think in centuries, not years. And they needed time to recover too. Our last strike hurt them badly. Richardson was examining the data more closely. These neural patterns match classified medical reports I've seen recently. Cases of consortium officials exhibiting unusual behaviors. How many? Wells asked sharply. Dozens, maybe hundreds. Richardson looked up with dawning comprehension. Including members of the High Council. Alara felt cold dread settling in her stomach. Admiral Kraz has been pushing for aggressive action against your fleet since you appeared. Wells nodded grimly. He's likely compromised. The Harvesters prioritize military leaders. We need proof, Brennan insisted. Something concrete we can take back. We have it, Jackson said. He handed Richardson a data module. Neural scanner technology. It can detect Harvester influence in affected individuals. This is why you came back now, Alara realized. You've developed a way to identify them and remove them, Wells confirmed. Without harming the host. Suddenly alarms blared throughout the station. A technician rushed into the room. Commander Wells, we've detected multiple ships entering the system. Consortium military signatures. How did they find us? Wells demanded. The technician looked grim. They're following a Harvester beacon, coming from inside this station. All eyes turned to the consortium visitors. Someone here is compromised, Wells said, drawing her weapon. And they just gave away our position to the enemy. Humanity was just a legend, until their war fleet emerged from Deep Space Part 4. The infiltration. Everyone stay where you are, Commander Wells ordered, her weapon still drawn. Alara, Brennan, and Richardson exchanged worried glances. The human? Soldiers moved to block the exits. This is a misunderstanding, Alara said, keeping her voice calm. None of us would betray your position. Dr. Jackson picked up a small device from a nearby table. We can settle this quickly. This is a portable neural scanner. He held it up. It will detect any Harvester presence. Wells nodded. Dr. Jackson, we'll scan each of you. Anyone who resists will be detained immediately. I volunteer to go first, Richardson said, stepping forward. Jackson held the scanner near Richardson's head. The device hummed softly, then displayed green lights. Clear, Jackson announced. Lieutenant Brennan went next. Again, the device showed green. Also clear. When Alara's turn came, she felt a mild tingling sensation as the scanner activated. The lights remained green. Commander Voss is clear too, Jackson confirmed. Wells looked at Alara's security team members. That leaves you 4. One by one, Jackson scanned the security officers. The first 3 showed no signs of Harvester influence. Then the scanner reached the 4th officer, a quiet man named Roy Benson. The device flashed red and emitted a sharp beep. Step away from him, Wells commanded. The other security officers looked shocked. Benson's face remained blank for a moment. Then his expression changed, becoming cold and alien. When he spoke, his voice had a strange echo. Too late. He moved with impossible speed, grabbing a weapon from one of the human guards. Before anyone could react, he fired at the station's main control panel. Alarms blared louder as systems began to fail. Take him down, Wells shouted. The human soldiers fired stun weapons. Benson dodged the first shots with inhuman agility, but Lieutenant Brennan tackled him from behind. They struggled briefly before Wells fired a precise shot that hit Benson in the shoulder. He collapsed. Restraints, Jackson called. The soldiers quickly secured Benson with special cuffs. I never noticed anything unusual about him, Brennan said, breathing heavily. He's been on my team for 2 years. That's how they work, Wells explained. The host remains functional, often unaware they're being controlled. The Harvester only takes full control when needed. Station personnel rushed in to repair the damaged systems, but Jackson looked grim. Too late. The beacon is active and he's destroyed the scrambler that could have blocked it. How long do we have? Alara asked. Minutes, Wells replied. We need to evacuate. Now. They boarded a different shuttle than the one they had arrived in. This vessel was smaller, but heavily armed and equipped with stealth technology. "What about your people?" Richardson asked as they prepared to leave the station. "They have escape pods," Wells assured him. "Standard protocol for compromised outposts." As their shuttle departed, they watched small pods launching from the station, heading in different directions. "Where are we going?" Brennan asked. "Back to consortium headquarters," Wells said. "You have the neural scanner technology now. You need to find out how far the infiltration has spread." Their shuttle accelerated rapidly, then engaged its stealth systems. Behind them, consortium military vessels appeared near the station. "They'll destroy it," Ilara realized. Wells nodded grimly. "Standard procedure. The harvesters don't want any evidence of their presence to survive." Sure enough, the consortium ships opened fire on the station. Within moments, the asteroid base was reduced to floating debris. "Those ships," Brennan said, watching the scanner, "they're ignoring the escape pods. Because they don't care about human survivors," Wells explained. "Their mission was to destroy the evidence and the technology. The neural scanners are what they truly fear." Several hours later, they approached consortium space. Wells had remained silent for much of the journey, focused on piloting and evading detection. Now she turned to face them. "I can't take you all the way," she said. "A human ship appearing at consortium headquarters would cause panic. I'll drop you at a transfer point." "What about Officer Benson?" Ilara asked, glancing at their prisoner who was sedated in a secure compartment. "I'm taking him with me," Wells said. "Our scientists can study the harvester attached to him. Maybe find a way to remove it without harming him." Ilara nodded. "Thank you. There's something else you should know," Wells added. "We've detected unusual activity from Admiral Kraz since your departure. He's ordered a military response to the human fleet, claiming we attacked the Proxima outpost." "That's a lie," Brennan protested. "Of course it is," Wells agreed. "But if he's compromised, the harvesters will use him to start a war between our peoples. That would serve their purposes perfectly." Richardson held up the data module containing the neural scanner technology. "With this, we can prove he's been influenced." "If you can get close enough to scan him," Wells cautioned. "The harvesters aren't stupid. They'll keep compromised officials protected." The shuttle slowed as they reached the transfer point, a small automated consortium relay station. "There's a messenger ship docked there," Wells explained. "It's programmed to return to consortium headquarters. It will get you there faster than I could." Before they disembarked, Wells gave them each small communication devices. "These are untraceable. If you need to contact us, use them." She looked at each of them in turn. "What happens next depends on you. Either you expose the infiltration, or the harvesters start a war that will destroy both our peoples." The return to consortium headquarters was met with suspicion. Security forces immediately separated them for individual questioning. Ilara found herself in a sterile room facing two officials she didn't recognize. "Commander Voss," one began, "your actions have caused serious concern. You were instructed to deliver a message to the human fleet, not to spend days with them or visit unauthorized locations." "There have been developments you need to know about," Ilara said firmly. "The humans have provided evidence of—" "We're aware of their claims," the official interrupted. "Admiral Kraz has briefed the council. The humans are attempting to sow discord within the consortium to weaken our defenses." Ilara tried another approach. "Where is Science Officer Richardson? He has important data to present." The officials exchanged glances. "Officer Richardson is being debriefed separately." Something in their tone made Ilara uneasy. "I need to speak with High Counselor Pella immediately." "The High Counselor is unavailable," the second official said. "Until further notice, you are relieved of duty and confined to quarters." As Ilara was escorted to her room, she noticed increased military presence throughout the station. Guards stood at every junction, and ships were being prepared for deployment. In her quarters, she found all communication systems disabled. The windows were locked into opaque mode, preventing her from seeing outside. She was a prisoner. Hours later, her door opened unexpectedly. Lieutenant Brennan slipped inside, looking tense. We need to move quickly, he whispered. They've taken Richardson and the neural scanner. They're planning to destroy the technology. How did you get in here? Ilara asked. I still have friends in security, Brennan explained. Not everyone believes the story Kraz is telling. Something's wrong, and people are beginning to notice. What story? Kraz claims the humans destroyed the Proxima outpost, killing thousands. He's ordered the fleet to prepare for war. Brennan's expression was grim. We have hours, maybe less, before the consortium attacks the human fleet. We need to find Richardson and the scanner, Ilara said. It's the only way to prove the truth. Brennan nodded. I know where they're holding him, but getting there won't be easy. We have no choice, Ilara said, activating the communication device Wells had given her. And we might need help. Humanity was just a legend, until their war fleet emerged from Deep Space Part 5. Legends reborn moving through the corridors of Consortium headquarters proved dangerous. Security patrols had doubled, and military personnel seemed to be everywhere. Ilara and Brennan kept to maintenance passages and service tunnels. Richardson is being held in the medical research wing, Brennan whispered as they paused at a junction. They're calling it a quarantine, claiming he was exposed to human bioweapons. More lies, Ilara said. How many people do you think are compromised? Impossible to know without the scanner. But something strange is happening with communication systems. All messages are being routed through Central Command for security reasons. Kraz is controlling what information reaches the public. The communication device Wells had given Ilara vibrated softly. She activated it, and a small hologram of Commander Wells appeared. We received your signal, Wells said. What's happening? Ilara quickly explained the situation. Wells looked grim. Captain Harper suspected this might happen. We've activated protocol disclosure. What does that mean? Brennan asked. Remember when I said we've been watching the consortium for decades? Wells smiled slightly. We weren't just watching. We have people in place, and ships. The hologram changed to show a star map. Dozens of points of light appeared throughout consortium space. Stealth vessels, Wells explained, hidden in strategic locations, and operatives in key positions. They're mobilizing now. Operatives? Ilara was shocked. Humans living among us. Not exactly humans, Wells said. Allies. People from various species who learned the truth over the years. Some are descendants of those who helped us during the original conflict. The hologram returned to Wells's face. We're sending a team to your location. There's a maintenance access. Point on level 47, section C. Can you reach it? Brennan nodded. We can, but what about Richardson? Our people will handle that. Focus on reaching the extraction point. The transmission ended. Ilara and Brennan exchanged looks. Do we trust them? Brennan asked. Do we have a choice? Ilara replied. Level 47 was used for environmental systems maintenance and was largely automated. Few people had reason to visit it. This made it perfect for a covert meeting point, but also meant any presence there would be suspicious. They had almost reached the designated section when alarm klaxons began blaring throughout the station. Attention all personnel, a voice announced over the communication system. This is Admiral Kraz. Hostile human forces have been detected within consortium space. All civilian vessels are ordered to dock immediately. All military personnel report to battle stations. This is not a drill. They're starting the war, Ilara realized with horror. Brennan checked a nearby terminal. The fleet is mobilizing. They're targeting the human ships near Proxima. They hurried to the meeting point, a small maintenance bay with access to external airlocks. The door slid open as they approached, revealing a surprising sight. High Counselor Pela stood inside, along with 3 other consortium officials Ilara recognized from the science division. And with them was Richardson, looking tired but unharmed. Counselor? Ilara was stunned. How did you... There's no time to explain fully, Pela said. Richardson managed to contact me before they took him. He showed me the scanner data. The old counselor looked deeply troubled. Kraz is definitely compromised, as are at least 7 council members and numerous military commanders. We retrieved the scanner, one of the science officials added, holding up the device. But Kraz has convinced the military that humans are mounting an invasion. He's ordered attacks on any human ships. A nearby door opened and a maintenance worker entered. Except he wasn't a worker at all, Alara realized, noticing the subtle differences in his appearance. Commander Wells sent me, the disguised human said. We need to move now. Our shuttle is docked at the external airlock. Where are we going? Brennan asked. To stop a war, Pela said simply. The human stealth shuttle moved swiftly away from consortium headquarters, its advanced technology keeping them invisible to sensors. Inside, Richardson worked with the science officials to prepare multiple copies of the neural scanner. We're approaching the fleet gathering point, the pilot announced. Outside the viewport, they could see hundreds of consortium warships forming attack formations. At their center was the command vessel where Admiral Kraz was directing operations. How do we reach Kraz? Ilara asked. That ship will be heavily guarded. We don't need to reach him, Pela said. We need to reach everyone else. The disguised human operative smiled. That's where our other assets come in. Throughout the consortium fleet, certain individuals began acting simultaneously. Communications officers, technical specialists, and even some command staff, people who had learned the truth about the harvesters over the years. They had remained silent, watching and waiting for this moment. Now they moved with coordinated precision, temporarily taking control of the fleet's communication systems. On the main viewing screens of every ship, including the stations back at headquarters, an unexpected broadcast began. It showed Pela with Ilara, Richardson, and the science team beside her. This is High Counselor Pela, she announced. What I am about to show you has been hidden from the consortium for centuries. The broadcast displayed the evidence from the human archives, the original harvester infiltration, the true reason for humanity's retreat, and finally, the neural scan data showing Kraz's infection. The humans have not come as invaders, Pela continued. They have returned to help us fight an enemy that has been manipulating us from within. Admiral Kraz and others are under harvester control. The war they want to start is not to protect the consortium, but to destroy both our civilizations. On the command vessel, Admiral Kraz ordered the broadcast cut off, but the damage was done. Doubts were spreading through the fleet. Ship captains began questioning their orders, and then the human fleet arrived. Their ships appeared suddenly, seemingly out of nowhere, throughout the consortium formation. Not in attack positions, but in a defensive screen protecting the consortium's core, worlds. The largest human vessel, the Horizon, positioned itself directly in front of Kraz's command ship. Captain Harper's face appeared on the communication screens. This is Captain Natalie Harper of Earth, she declared. We have not come to fight you, but to save you. Look at your long-range sensors. Consortium sensor operators obeyed, and what they saw chilled them. At the edge of their space, hundreds of ships with the distinctive harvester configuration were approaching, the main invasion force. While you've been preparing to fight us, Harper continued, the real enemy has arrived. They expected us to destroy each other, leaving them to take whatever remained. Richardson's voice joined the broadcast. Every ship has received a neural scanner design. Your medical teams can construct them immediately. Check your commanders. Find those who have been compromised. Across the fleet, confusion turned to action. Scanner devices were quickly assembled and used. To the shock of many crews, officers who had been acting increasingly aggressive or erratic were revealed to be under harvester influence. On Kraz's command ship, security forces surrounded the admiral. His eyes had changed, becoming darker as the harvester within him took full control. You fools, Kraz said, his voice distorted. They are already among you. They have been for centuries. Back on the stealth shuttle, Ilara watched as both fleets, human and consortium, began reorganizing to face the approaching harvester ships. Will it be enough? She asked. It has to be, Pela said. The human operative smiled. This isn't our entire fleet, you know. Admiral Reeves brought only our forward elements. The main Earth Defense Force is right behind us. As if on cue, space seemed to ripple behind the human positions. Massive ships, larger than anything either fleet had deployed so far, emerged from what appeared to be folded space. Leading them was a vessel that dwarfed even the horizon. The Sunbreaker, the operative said with pride. Admiral Reeves's flagship, the culmination of 300 years of human military development. Captain Harper's voice returned to the communication systems, addressing both fleets now. The legends about humanity weren't wrong, she said. We are dangerous in war. Today you'll see why. The combined fleets moved into formation as the harvester ships approached. Humans and consortium species prepared to fight side by side against their common enemy. Alara looked out at the massive formation of ships, the legend of humanity made real before her eyes, not as conquerors, but as saviors. For 300 years they remembered, she said quietly. They could have forgotten us, built their own civilization far from here. Instead, they prepared and watched and waited, knowing someday we would need them. The first shots of the battle flashed in the distance as the forward elements engaged the Harvester scouts. A war was beginning, but not the one the Harvesters had planned. This would be a war for survival, fought by former enemies now united against a common threat, and the legends of humanity would be written anew,